Hi, I'm Nick Barrow, critic for NovaStream Network.
And I'm Georja Malt, founder of With G Digital and lover of literature.
And welcome to The Book Was Better, a monthly podcast with myself and Georgia, where we read a popular novel, we watch the movie that was adapted from that novel, and debate the age-old question, what was better, the book or the movie? Georgia, as always, thank you for coming by to your own show.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you making the effort. How you been? You been good?
Been good, been busy. Busy reading, busy watching.
Busy watching. It's all we do, to be honest.
It's all we do.
It's
all we want to do.
It's all we want to do. It's the only parameters for this podcast, so it's literally our life. We read one book and watch one movie a month.
There's only two rules. The first rule of
the book was better is to read the book, and then the second rule of the book was better is to watch the movie.
Yeah.
And then the third rule is to talk about it, because we want lots of people to watch and listen. So obviously, thank you all for your support. As always, if you're on YouTube, you can like and subscribe. And we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio, I found out. I don't know what that is, but we're there. To like the one or two people who listen, it comes up in our stats that you listen through that. Thank you. So you get a special shout out.
We see you.
We see you.
We appreciate it.
And if it is you, DM us and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Or I will ask questions about what iHeartRadio is, because I have no idea what it is. So, but again, thank you. But it is my pick for this month, and in the most film bro sort of way, I picked what people kind of associate with the film bro-esque sort of film, and that is Fight Club. Now, look, I don't know what your relationship is with Fight Club as a movie or a book, but I remember I was far too young to see this movie when I saw it. I remember pestering my mum to buy the DVD for me when I was like 12 years old. Did I understand what was going on? No, but it was Brad Pitt and there was lots of fighting and I loved it then. So,
sure.
But look.
A little bit over your head, I'm guessing.
You know what? The thematic elements of this film, little cinephile Nick had no clue what was going on in this movie. What's anti-establishment? What's anti-government? What's anti-masculinity? I don't know. I was 12, but it was boys punching each other and it had a cool aesthetic. So I was all over it. So I was 12 when I saw this film, and I didn't realize until I would say only in the last like 5 or 6 years that it was actually based on a novel. So that was very new news to me. But what about you, Georgia? What's Fight Club mean to you?
Well, very not very surprisingly, the book came into my realm first, as it so often does in this case with us.
Yes.
But it so I was working in bookshops since 14. Obviously, it was a book we had in our classic section, so I'd always sort of come across it. I never read it. It just, as a 14-year-old girl, wasn't really
it's
in
not
my radar.
Totally,
I guess. And then I watched the film first years ago, probably like 5 or 6 years ago for the first time.
Which seems like a way more appropriate age to watch it for the first time.
Yeah. And I mean, I understoed it thematically, you know.
Totally,
I mean,
what was your reaction to the film? What did you think?
Oh, I mean, I knew everyone had said it was really good, and I thought, oh, that was a really good film.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
And I also didn't know the plot twist. I had no concept
when
of
you
it.
told me that when we were talking about doing this book, that shocked me, because it strikes me as like it's up there with like Darth Vader being Luke's father, Bruce Willis dead at the end of Sixth Sense, like Tyler Durden is the narrator. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just assumed it was common knowledge across all pop culture in the zeitgeist at that time, right?
I think just the
That's
people
incredible.
I hung around with, my family had never seen the movie. It just wasn't.
You and Rhiannon weren't discussing Fight Club on a daily basis?
No, we had to watch Pride and Prejudice every week, so we didn't have much time.
Is there any big plot twists in Pride and Prejudice that we should know
Darcy's
about?
not an arsehole. He's a good guy. I guess that's pretty much it. Oh, maybe about Mr. Wickham. Anyway, we might do Pride and Prejudice.
We might actually do it, so no spoilers yet. Right, so, okay, and so you didn't know this. Okay, so that's actually an interesting point then.
Yeah, I've got some
thoughts about it, which we can hold on to, because I was about to ask you, but I'm like, we've got a whole show dedicated to...
I'm like, don't try and take my nuggets too early.
Hold your nuggets. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll chomp on the nuggets later. But it's interesting that you first watched the movie when I first discovered this was a book, which is interesting. So, and being a film that I probably hadn't seen in a couple of years, I was super excited to revisit. But for me, this is probably one of my favorite movies ever made. And it has been since I was like 12 watching it. But as I've watched it over the years and understood what it's really about more, it's one of those movies where the standing alone as a film outside of the book, like it is just such an intense ride. And that's my sort of movie. I like movies that make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Watching this with Rhiannon, she does not like movies that make her feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
She hates tension. She hates, lots of conflict and stuff. So this it's interesting that I sit there and I get enjoyment out of a movie like Fight Club.
Yeah, she does talk about how sick and twisted you are.
All the time. And hey, I know I come across as a learned man who reads books now, but I'm a psychopath in real life. And when I say Fight Club's one of my favorite movies, that should be an indicator of how crazy I am. But it's funny because like Fight Club is crazy, but it's also... It's almost like a cautionary tale of like, this is what crazy leads to. And it's funny that it's just
extremist views as well.
But it's also like anti that, which is kind of like, I found like,
there's so much hypocrisy.
Oh, and it's brilliant. The book, especially after reading the book, I understand now why, because this movie was like kind of adopted by film bros, right? Like this is like, there's a great, I don't know if you remember College Humor, the YouTube channel. They used to do like skits on YouTube back in the day. So they do this skit where it's the Film Bro or like the College Bro Film Awards, and they're doing all these things, and it's like all these like Chad looking dudes or muscular, and Fight Club wins every award even though it didn't come out that year. And it's that sort of movie, right?
God, that's hilarious.
It's great. It's actually a great video, but it's this hyper masculine thing about, like you said, extremism, about like ultimately domestic terrorism that's like anti-government, and it's all done, like all stems from this Fight Club where men get to let out their aggression in a really violent way. But after reading and knowing that the movie is sort of a piss take on that, after reading the book, I'm like, this is satire.
Yeah.
Like it is super... It is making fun of everything that this book is actually about. And I kind of love that. Like, I don't know if you got that from reading the book.
Yeah, I don't know. I struggled with the book.
Yes.
And it's actually interesting. So you probably wouldn't be surprised to hear that it started as a short story and then
that
kind of got turned into a novel.
Because it's a short novel too. It's like 200 pages and it's short chapters. It's punchy.
Well, that's the interesting thing. So he actually started to go to these writers group, which let's say his name, Chuck
Oh, we just looked it up. Oh my God. Palahniuk or something.
Palahniuk. So he started to go to these writers group in 1995 that sort of looked at this style of writing called dangerous writing, which is this really like abrupt, disjointed kind of style, and which the novel is essentially very so. Just all over the shop. And I struggled to find connection with anyone or anything.
And do you know what? I think that just goes to show how stable you could possibly be. Because this strikes me as like almost like a manifesto. Almost it's someone's recollection of a manifesto. Obviously, like kind of breaking down like a little bit of what it's about. It's about a nameless character, the narrator, who is kind of just like not content with his life, hates his job, hates like he's.
I think he's doing all the things that society deems right that you should be doing, and he's just waiting to feel this contentment that's never coming.
And it's exactly
which we've all had moments.
We all have moments like that, and we all have had those self-reflective moments of like, what is the purpose? Like, what is the purpose of all of this? And it's very much like doubles down on the materialism of everything. He's like, he's an insomniac, first of all, so he doesn't sleep. He doesn't know when he's kind of awake or asleep. And he's droning through his job, and the only satisfaction he gets out of is decking out his apartment with IKEA furniture. And one day he comes back from a work trip and his apartment is blown up, and he only contact he has is either, actually I should say as well, he kind of looks for this purpose and satisfaction and feeling from going to help groups, and specifically help groups that are about people suffering from terminal cancer.
It's just so morbid.
It's morbid. It's
because
awful,
it makes him feel better about himself.
The only time he can cry is around people who are also, it's almost like that, I don't know what the term is, and I should have looked it up, but it's like, you know how it's like that, it's like almost like that group think of like when everyone else in the room is sad about something, you just automatically can feel sad too, and you might not know why, but you get that sort of, that feeling, I don't know what, it's like a collective emotion or something. And he goes and cries his eyes out at like a testicular cancer survivor group. All these guys who like, bless his bitch tits Bob, who like has had his testicles cut off, is like really embracing Cornelius. And that's the first time he cries in months. And then he meets Marla.
Yeah, who similarly
psychopath
just loves going.
Who also goes to the testicular cancer survivor group for the exact same, almost exact same reasons as the narrator.
Well, I think they're both miserable, and the only way that they're looking to feel better is through being around people who are worse off than them, which is actually
terrible. And that's the best part is that the book or the movie almost like highlights, like is throwing into your face that these are not good people.
Oh,
like there is no redemptive nature of like, even though it's trying to explain how the narrator feels and like why he's trying to censor this feeling, you never once go like, well, that's the good way to do it. You know what I mean? Like, So he meets Marla and he's like, tries to expose her as a fake. And then he also on this plane.
And it's so funny. He's like calling her out as a fake. Like it's constantly talking about her.
Yeah.
He has these little Holden Caulfield moment where he's like, you're a phony. Like you're fake. Like get the faker out of here. And it's like, you're going to the same groups as her.
It's funny. Like, you're calling her out because it's just fucking with your vibe of doing the same thing.
100%.
And so he meets her, but then he also meets a man called Tyler Durden, a soap salesman on a plane who kind of has this incredibly anti-establishment, very morbidly existential view on the world. Like nothing we do matters. Like we live, we die. It's all about the impact.
He's like also like an ultimate cool guy. Like you know, he's just like cruising through life.
I don't care about anything, but like I care about a lot. But you know, he's got the jacket, he's got the glasses, he's a soap salesman. I think that's cool.
Which is like interesting though, because that brings us to like a big difference between the book and the film is like even the way that they meet. So Tyler, he meets Tyler on a beach,
in the book, and then on the plane home in the film. Which then ultimately leads to when the house explodes, he has a choice, the narrator, to call Marla or call Tyler to stay there for the night, and he calls Tyler, and it just leads down this Tyler opening up his eyes to the meaning he's been trying to find in the world, or like a meaning, not the meaning. Like he's, try out this thing where we start this fight club and then accidentally start this domestic terrorist group called Project Mayhem and give yourself the power and the purpose you've been looking for by having control over all these minions who are in the exact same position as you are, but you have become their cult leader, I guess, to an extent. And it's funny, you can kind of pull some like real life comparisons to that as well in regards to these days, like with Andrew Tate, right? He strikes me as a very Tyler Durden-esque character where he is, some of the things he says you can go like, I understand what you're saying. You're not saying it in the right way. And then he'll go to an extremist thing and you're like, fuck you, dude. Like you're just a bad person. So you pull people in like with those same sort of beliefs as you, and that's where the narrator
I think if you look back from in history,
there's one guy.
There's one guy who comes to mind particularly who I think used that exact tactic.
And you know what? And it really worked out for him.
Not gonna name any names.
It just rhymes with shitler. And the schmartzy schmarty. But. Hey, I mean, look, anyway, back to Fight Club. And that's what the narrator sort of sees in Tyler Durden is this leader who has had
he's everything he wants to be.
Everything he wants to
be.
Totally. So that's the basis of Fight Club. That was my extended basis of Fight Club. Before we really crack into it, do you have anything about or interesting facts about the book or anything you wanted to say before we crack on in?
Before those, like other than those little
tidbits you threw in.
Bits and bobs that I've thrown in already. I guess I know that it was sort of the inspiration originally struck him to write the novel because he went on a camping trip and had some sort of like altercation where he got beaten up essentially.
Oh shit, yeah, right, okay.
And so like he goes into his humdrum mundane job.
Yeah.
And none of his co-workers asked what happened.
Wow.
Which happens in the movie.
Happens in the movie to a very extreme level, right?
And he was like, it's too uncomfortable for anyone to ask me
what happened? Are you okay?
And like that just like spiraled, I think, this thought. So that was like the initial kind of, and also it's he got a lot of inspiration from a very famous book that was also made into a movie.
Oh,
does anything come into mind?
Oh God, no!
I'll read you his quote.
Read me the quote, and I'll see what I can.
Oh, it's in the quote. It's a spoiler, so I haven't given you enough
time. Blank out the title, and then I'll see what I can do. Okay. I'll see if I can get it.
Really, what I was writing was just blank, 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 updated a little. It was apostolic fiction where a surviving apostle tells the story of his hero. There are 2 men and a woman, and one man, the hero, is shot to death.
Oh.
When I say it's going to kill you.
Yeah, it's going to really annoy me, isn't it?
It's so hard. There's so many movies.
Yeah. I've got like 90 running through my head. What is it?
The Great Gatsby.
Oh my fucking God.
Because Nick Carraway
that makes so much sense.
Is the narrator of the whole story. I thought that was really interesting when I read that.
Wow. Yeah, it's really just like
that's how he sees it.
It's like a grungy Great Gatsby. It's Great Gatsby on the polar opposite end of like the social spectrum, right? High society down to literally living in like a decrepit house, having a fight club underground.
I guess just like the narrative structure, because when you think about it, the narrator is Nick Carraway.
And Tyler, when he meets Tyler at that time in his life,
So he drew a lot of similarities to that.
Of Marla between the two, Which is then funny then when it comes to the ending of Fight Club and you realise the twist, which we will get to, but... Fuck. Okay, no, that makes complete sense. That's really actually kind of floored me a little bit.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. And I would love to know how this deranged piece of literature became a film. Who read this and was like, wow.
I got 2 words for you, and in my opinion, the only 2 words that could have made this movie. David Fincher is the director of this film. And for those who don't know, he directed Seven, which is arguably one of the most disturbing crime films. Yeah, love that movie.
It was great, though.
Gone Girl.
Yeah, okay. Which is you also love Gone Girl.
Love Gone Girl. Yeah, I've got a really weird sort of connection with these movies.
I'm like a bit worried about my best friend.
I'm like, I love these murder films. And funnily enough, he did the Netflix show Mindhunter, which is
I've heard it's great. I've watched it.
Incredible. So please, Netflix, revive that for a 3rd season, because I know our podcast is really going to be the catalyst for you to decide to do a 3rd season, but we'll fight the good fight. But it was, 20th Century Fox, right? Purchased the rights to the book before it came out, which is pretty obvious standard thing. But then they obviously read the book. They worked with the screenwriter Jim Ulls and David Fincher on really trying to rework this book, because when they were reading the script, they were like, we can't make this. It is, especially for like the late 90s, it is literally too much. It's too controversial. The themes, they were super worried about it sort of acting as this manifesto for crazy people who want to do these insane things. And once the executives saw a first cut of the film, they were like, oh my God, it's our worst fears. Like, this is a movie that is literally what we said we didn't want to make.
Oh no.
Whereas Fincher the whole time and Jim Ulls, the screenwriter, were like, you guys don't see between the lines of this movie. Like, this is like ultimately making fun of everyone like this. And they're like, that's even worse. Like, you're going to cause them to do something crazy. You're making fun of them.
I think they're so in their own thick of it that they wouldn't even realize that it's satire.
Exactly right. Yeah, they just want a marketable. They want a marketable movie, right? That's they're not looking for the thematics and the art behind the film. They're just
the crazy people who watch it wouldn't realize it was satire.
Which is why it was, but that's exactly why it was picked up by film bro culture, right? Because they were like, holy shit, man, it's Brad Pitt and fighting in a pub.
Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
I hate the government. I hate government and I like drinking beers. Like, that's kind of like.
Don't forget.
Fucking biffing. But that's the thing. It's like, it's funny because it underperformed at the box office. It made 11 million on its opening weekend for a projected 15 million. So it underperforms at the box office, but it's one of the first movies that was part of the straight, like a DVD coming to DVD model, right? So there was big hype being like, oh my gosh, this is going to be one of the first DVDs, or like in the first wave of DVDs to come out. And it had a huge success on DVD. Obviously, since then has become like renowned as like one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
It's currently number 12 on IMDb's top 250, which
Wow.
makes sense. Like it's high up there for me as well. And you know, this like, what's this? The 10th anniversary. So like it's got anniversary editions of all its like home media stuff. So like people love this movie, right? Which is fantastic for me. And like back to those executives, those Fox executives, when they saw that first cut of the film, they were like, let's focus on the fighting stuff. Let's make it like, you know, it's this movie about like real masculine dudes who are like going to this club to fight each other. Like it's an action movie, which when you really break it down, the fight club element is like maybe a quarter of the film.
It's like not even really relevant to anything.
No, it's
just
like,
the way that they got them in, like you were saying.
Totally,
before.
yeah. So it's one of those things where, and because I was reading, so like the executives were like, shit, like not even Brad Pitt's going to bring in a female audience for this film. Like he wasn't that big at that time. I want to bring up about the Blu-ray. And this is one of my favorite things ever. And this,
you're about to nerd out.
This just solidifies the fact that Fight Club is a satire. If you like needed the last little bit of convincing that like this is actually a satire on everything it's about, the menu of the Blu-ray, you put the Blu-ray in,
yeah,
and the menu for Drew Barrymore's Never Been Kissed comes up. That is the menu for Fight Club. It is Drew Barrymore's film Never Been Kissed for about 10 seconds, and then it statics, and then goes to
like when they change the real, like they have the glitches.
Yeah. So it glitches, and then it turns into the narrator's apartment with all the IKEA furniture stuff, which is fantastic.
That is hilarious.
I remember putting it in, and I was sitting there, and I was like, I know I've just put Fight Club in, but now am I about to watch Never Been Kissed? Which is a great...
Not as good of a movie, though.
Not as good as a movie, but hey, let's not beat that movie while it's down because it's actually not terrible. But...
I'm like, teacher-student relationship, I'm like, questionable.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was the early 2000s, man. You do whatever you want.
Anything goes. Just look at Brad Pitt's sunglasses.
Y2K. Oh, yeah, well, hey, yeah. That's what we'll definitely talk about, Brad Pitt's fashion in this film. Any excuse to have the abs out. But that to me solidified the fact that, like, this is absolutely just satire. It's a piss take on everything, every toxically masculine thing this movie's trying to be about. Like, it is not that. And I think that's fantastic. It's like one of my favorite features of the Blu-ray itself. So
that's hilarious.
But the movie is just held in such high regard. Like it is, you know, retrospectively. And there's like a few films out there you can be like, was ahead of its time. And Fight Club probably was ahead of its time.
I think so.
But I think at the same time, it probably came out at the perfect time because now we can talk about it retrospectively being like, you know, it has a cult status because of it.
Yeah.
It's probably just one of the more popular cult status films. So I love this movie. I think it's fantastic. So
yeah, it took me a while to like work up to watch it because I just knew it's so dark.
Oh,
and I couldn't really remember it. But then it was like the second I started, I was like, this is such a good movie.
And it's kind of funny.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Really funny. The same way American Psycho is funny.
Yeah.
Like it is just, and that's the
laughing
satire.
a lot. Yeah.
And it's, I think we laugh at, like a lot of the humor is obviously in the first half, both of the book and the film, in regards to like how the narrator sees the world or how he sees he should be presented in the world. Because we look at it, like when he's talking about all the IKEA furniture, or he's talking about how, you know, how his job is kind of like meaningless, but it's like his job involves doing a audit on whether the car that his company has created needs to be recalled based on someone's accident. So it's like not the fact that like, oh my God, 3 people died in this car accident.
It's like what didn't work. It's like statistically, what's the chances? And then like he has a formula to work out whether the cost of doing a recall is worth the statistical probability of it being an issue kind of thing. Like it's all about money.
Funny as hell because it's like completely negates the human aspect of it and just is like, oh yeah, but like if I can get this to not be a recall, then I've done my job well. And the way he talks about it in the book is fucking hilarious. Like I laugh a lot. So, which again, is there something wrong with me?
I actually thought that was funny.
I'm starting to get a little concerned about myself there. But let's talk about sort of our favorite moments in both. Did you have a moment from the book which stuck out to you as something you really enjoyed?
That's a tough one. I don't know if anyone's picked up on this, but I didn't love the book.
I was going to say, what was your overall feeling about the book then? Yeah,
I hate it, but I just...
Did you hate it based on like just how it was presented, like in this manic sort of dangerous writing?
Yeah, like I guess it's just like, if you... Sorry, I'm...
please.
But it's just like even you start it and it's like you're having a fever dream.
Yeah.
And it's like... It's just like he just names all these locations he's going to and it's so like choppy changey and so just like not... I just was like, who are you? What are you doing? Like, I just don't... Because I obviously read the book first.
Yes, totally.
Because I hadn't seen
the movie in so long.
Film in so long, I kind of forgot
it was pretty fresh, right? Yeah.
And reading it from that perspective of almost having... seen the movie, like
totally. Like you remember the twist from the movie, and you kind of don't remember everything.
Slashes,
Yeah.
I could not connect.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think like I know some things that stood out to me that were in the book and not the film that I thought were good. Was I kind of liked the whole plot line of that. So in the film, obviously they make these soap bars you're talking about.
Yes.
So they say the best thing to make soap out of is human fat.
Yes.
Which is so disturbing and weird.
Yes.
So in the film, you see them go and steal the fat from the liposuction clinic.
The clinic,
from. But in the book, they're actually... So Marla's
is it mother-in-law or her mother?
No, I think it's her mother.
It's her mother, yeah.
Her mother is donating her fat so that Marla can freeze it or refrigerate it to use in the future as collagen for lip surgery and like cosmetic surgery. Which is so weird.
It's so fucking wild.
So essentially they're like sending Marla's mum's presents, like fatten her up. Yeah. And then they're getting the fat and Marla thinks they're storing it for her, but really they're using it,
making soap and by effect making napalm.
I was just like, I don't know. I don't know if I would say it's better, but I mean I was like thought it was really weird and like in this kind of time where every plot twist feels like we've seen it.
Yeah,
everything
totally.
We've read,
it's tough to be super original.
It's hard to be a bit shocked.
Yes,
and
totally.
I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, that's so weird. So that stood out to me as a weird plot. And then I kind of liked at the end, which is a bit of a spoiler, I guess. But like he, when he's kind of having that, he's telling us that he's talking to God. Like he's died, and it's like, I went to God and I said this.
That's a great
I don't know.
chapter.
It was just a really great little paragraph. But then you realize obviously he's not actually talking to God. It's something else entirely. But I liked that. I liked that
too because to me it kind of, again, similar in a different way, but similar to the Never Been Kissed intro to the movie. It to me was the part of the book where I was like, this is like, I maybe I just love satire that much, but I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like the narrator thinks he has done not only God's work on earth as Tyler Durden, but when he realizes, spoilers, that he is Tyler Durden is like a projection of what he wants to be. It was just actually him doing it the whole time. That he's like, oh my God, now I've done this and I've saved the world too. And he's talking to God like he's almost like,
no, he
you know what I mean?
Like he knows better than God.
Right? Like it's funny. It's really well written.
And I thought it was like, I think it was really more of a well circled moment because like the messaging is essentially like, because there's this scene in the film where Brad Pitt says, we're all I can't remember the exact terminology he uses, but basically we're all nothing, like you're less than nothing. It's like the iconic what does he say?
The movie.
And he's essentially telling them all like you're maggots or whatever.
Yeah, we're all seeing shit of the world or something like that.
That kind of attitude about people. And then he sort of is talking about this, to God in air quotes, and he says,
it's such a good chapter.
And he says like we're not nothing, but we're not amazing. We just are.
You're the all singing, all dancing crap of the world.
Yeah, and it sort of comes back to that thought
job,
where
you're not how much money you have in the bank. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it actually, in a almost like non-satirical way, is the narrator coming to this like more almost healthy idea that not everyone's scum.
It's
but not
the part of the book that
like,
has the most hope.
Here,
you know what I mean?
Living. That's what I liked about it. But you know, like maybe that's because there's not a lot of sentiment in this book. So I'm obviously obviously just trying to pull something nice out of it. I'm like, surely that's his faith in humanity getting restored. I'm like, it's gotta be something.
You're just really hopeful
nice.
for the narrator where I'm just like, kill everyone.
Yeah,
no, literally. But again, it's
We're
definitely
like devil and angel.
Yeah. We would be sitting on the narrator's shoulders and be like, please don't do it. And I'm like, more Fight Club, more beers, more biffs. I was like, because it's entertaining. I'm watching it like it's a movie. I don't care if it's real life. But it's one of those things where like that chapter for me, I think is really well, and it's really well written, but it stands out because of how manic that this writing is. Because I would wonder if you hadn't seen the movie at all, or especially if you didn't know that Tyler Durden was the narrator of the whole, or like, you know, they're vice versas, what reading this book would be like. Because reading the book, I was reading it in Edward Norton's voice. I was reading it knowing that he goes back and forth as Tyler, you know, in those times where he has what he thinks is insomnia. And he's like, I don't remember the hours from like 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. Like, but I was awake.
It's so obvious when you know.
Totally.
But when you don't know, it's actually, I remember it was not as obvious.
As obvious, right? And the book is written that way. He will almost like, it's almost like when Chuck, I'm just going to call him Chuck, when Chuck was writing the book, he was like, oh, I'll let this slip here. Or maybe he was just writing it and he was just like, this is the narrator, this is Tyler, narrator, Tyler, narrator. And he was kind of like, there's this unhinged quality to how he presents the story. But it's funny because rewatching, knowing that in the book obviously made it easier to digest. So I'm interested in knowing if any, like, especially when the book came out, if people were like, what the fuck is this, first of all? But then do you pick that Tyler's the narrator? But the film is throwing this in your face from minute one.
No, you know what? Kyle, my partner, who's also a bit of a film nerd, he was pointing out to me the flashes of Brad Pitt in the copy room and stuff.
There's about 5 of them in the first 10 minutes.
And then after you see it, you're like, there it is. But like the first time I had not seen it. Do you know what's funny?
And they all happen on really key points of dialogue. Oh, when the narrator is sort of told something that goes like against what he wants. So the first one's when he asks for the prescription drugs and the doctor goes, just get a good night's sleep. And then Tyler Durden flashes in the background. He's like, well, no, because like when I think I'm asleep, I'm actually being Tyler Durden and stuff. The thing that I think the movie so expertly throws in your face is when it's in the book when he's talking about all the places he flies to, and we see that montage at the beginning of the film. It's the first time we actually see Tyler Durden in the movie. He talks about, he's like, you fly somewhere one person and you'll land somewhere a completely different person. Yeah. And the camera follows Tyler Durden on the escalator. Like, it's literally telling you. Said.
He was like, that is the most obvious.
It is telling you then that like you are not who you are at that point in time. And it's kind of funny that what is regarded as one of the greatest movie twists ever. And don't get me wrong, even knowing it going in, I think it is brilliant. The chapter in the book is fantastic, and the way David Fincher presents it on screen is brilliant. Yeah, I loved it, but it's obvious. It's so obvious.
Does it, like, I was going to ask that, does it affect your enjoyment of it? Because I remember enjoying it more the first time not knowing.
Oh, it's a good question. I would say no, because I think my enjoyment level goes up every time trying to find the things that. So maybe I'm watching it through a different lens, right? Yeah. But at the same time, I also think it's a great story. Like I really like the actual narrative on its own. You know, despite how deplorable it really is, like at least understanding that it's bad things happening and these are not things we should do as a society. There is still an enjoyment in that. But
I think this is the problem for me is I can't honestly sit here and say I enjoy the story because I don't relate to it in any way.
Right, yeah.
I get we're all consumers and, we all want things, whatever. Like, sorry, I want a Prada bag. I don't know what to tell you. But it's just like...
Fight Club's getting mad at you for doing that. And I'm like,
I'm like, wow, I got punched in the face and I don't want a Prada bag anymore. Like, I just don't, like, as I'm, like, I guess I don't understand that male urge to punch each other in the face. It's just not something I have.
Yeah, totally. It's super. And they talk about how like it's a primal thing as well, right? It's like
I'm just never going to understand it. I've never
millions of years of DNA and all I want to do is biff.
I guess I just don't understand masculinity, which makes me feel bad because like when we read Little Women, I feel like you had a lot of appreciation for it, even though it wasn't particularly... Hey. Why did I say that?
I got a little whamming in me.
Little whamming.
I've got a little whamming in me.
No, but I just think it's like...
Right,
Just for me, it's hard to tap in and empathize with this
need
to beat each other to death.
It's funny you say that though because it's funny because the word, I wouldn't even use the word empathy as something how I felt in this. But it's funny because I can relate to, because I would look at that as like sport, right? Yeah. Playing so much sport growing up and like I played contact sports. Yeah. Like that was a way for me as a teenager where I could let out aggression in a healthy way. For sure. It was, but it's funny because I was literally just saying it was like a mutual consensual thing. It's two teams, but Fight Club kind of is. The Fight Club itself is a consensual, but it's just not it's not a healthy way to then continue. Like it was the evolution of Fight Club, like because like Fight Club is the most tame thing to happen in this book, right? It was a way for. Especially like they go for like that midlife crisis sort of, I don't know what to do. I have no purpose, no being, whatever.
Or young guys who don't know what path they're on.
Yeah, exactly right. And then it's kind of like start with Fight Club and then like, well, this is what the foundations of Fight Club have been set by Mr. Tyler Durden himself. And this is his views and this is what everything is against. Like, let's take down everything we're against. Let's take back the power as men. Sort of thing, like because only like I can only punch people enough before I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel as good anymore. What's the next level? So
I think it also just really shows that people need to be purpose driven. Like if you don't have a purpose, it's so easy to go away with. Like he just found all these people who felt insignificant, felt purposeless, and then they felt
who
like
validated
they belonged.
him, right?
Yeah, and then like they felt like they belonged to a cause that was helping society at large. And like you really see that, and it's so cleverly done, that evolution of that in the book and the film, and how things start off small and eventually lead to this place. Like and it didn't feel unrealistic.
It never grows to a point where you're like, what?
Army kind of thing.
He first built an army, but then like the climax of the book is like we're about to blow up 10 buildings, which are all major credit card companies. And it's like, I'd believe you did that. Like there was no point where I was like, oh, that's a bit too far. I was like, no, you set up how insane Fight Club is from the beginning. And then like the only natural escalation is to go as absurd as possible. Yeah. And I think it's really entertaining as well. Like it's I think from a film point of view, Finch's adaptation is spot on. Like
I think they adapted the film to a level, well, totally. I'm spoiling it, but it's better than the book.
Well, hey, and thanks for joining us now. But it's totally, I agree. Like it's one of those ones where it takes the foundation and the core narrative of the book and perfectly what I would think is like the only way to visually adapt it, right? The way Fincher actually puts it on screen makes me feel as dirty as I felt reading the book. And you know what I mean? There's no gloss, there's no shine. There's just like, this is a gross movie. It's dark. The underground of the bars are gross. The Paper Street house is gross and decrepit.
Visually it's perfect.
But then even
the house is perfect.
The house is perfect.
The house on Paper Street.
The house on Paper Street. It's funny because it sounds like it's from this beautiful, like that should be in like a Hallmark novel, right? And they're making fucking napalm in there. And then even to the point of like Edward Norton, like that is even Brad Pitt to an extent. I guess you would be like, they don't look like movie stars in this movie. Tyler Durden at points does like the moments where he like takes his shirt off and he's ripped is obviously where the narrator's like, I want to look like that. Yeah, but he's not like there's an attractiveness to it, but it's not like Brad Pitt hot.
Like
you know what I mean?
Seedy.
It's seedy. It's kind of like I'd one night stand you. Like I see you in a club. I see. I get what you're getting at, Mr. Durden. But like he's a gross man who the attractiveness is the power, right? And that's what I think part of like the visual adaptation of it is like Edward Norton looks fucked this whole movie. Like he hasn't slept. He's beaten to death. Like even in the book, it's even grosser. He's got a hole in his cheek in the book from getting punched, right? And it just gets bigger and bigger. Yeah, and like the prosthetics on that. But then they still managed to do like all the black eyes really well. The scene where he beats himself up in front of his boss.
Gosh, they did that so well.
And it's amazing in the film, but even in the book, I'm watching it and obviously knowing or having the visual guide there, I was kind of like, it's just as brutal reading this. So I have to commend, like David Fincher, I think is one of the best directors, not just working today, but of all time. But like he has fully understood what this book is and has managed to be like, I have the visual style for this.
But I think he also, like I was saying, made improvements because for me, I don't know if you felt like this. In the book, I felt like the narrator was more complicit in things than in the film. Like because in the book, he knows about Project Mayhem.
Yes,
he's
totally.
actually aware it's happening.
It's not like revealed to him in the film. Yeah.
But like in the film, I think there's more this obvious. You see the narrator is the hero, and you see Tyler as the villain. It's a
antagonist, and protagonist
you're
sort of thing.
You're rooting for the narrator a little bit more in the film because you feel like almost like he's a victim, even though it is him doing it.
Yeah,
you know he's like mentally unwell and sees himself as completely separately and has no conscious awareness of.
You know what? You're actually you're 100% right.
Yeah,
because
and so I feel for him more in
the
movie.
complicitness in the book is actually it makes so much sense because my favorite scene in the book is the car drive. Where the mechanic is going like, what do you wish you did right now? Like he's driving into oncoming traffic and in the book he's like, what do you wish you would did before you died? Like we're going to die right now. I'm counting down from 10. We're about to go head on with this truck. Like what do you wish you did right now before you died? And that's the part in the book where the narrator flips, where he's like, this is wrong. Like this isn't what Project Mayhem was about. But it's funny because that scene in the movie is kind of what leads to the Tyler Durden reveal. Like he's already kind of, he's very more focused on, he's actually kind of more focused on Marla at that point, which works well because Helena Bonham Carter is brilliant in this movie. She's so fucking good in this movie. Unhinged, absolutely unhinged. But the scene in the movie, which is great because it's Tyler Durden in the car driving it, not the mechanic. So the mechanic's actually in the back seat. Of the film and Tyler's driving the car and asking the same things. It's almost like that point. It makes more sense in the film to me that Tyler would be challenging the narrator on what he wish he did before he died because that's the antithesis of them, how the reveal happens. So I agree with you. I think the movie did a lot better than the book in making the narrator seem like
the hero stopping the
hero,
villain.
Right? Yeah, totally.
I mean, he is in the book, but
which makes that conversation with God more important if it happened like it did in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting.
Yeah. So,
very interesting.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you?
And there we are.
Yeah, we're here. We're here at this point already. So, I mean, like the visual, like I fucking love the visuals in this movie. So I was going to ask about weaker parts in the film and the book, but obviously you kind of see the book as a whole is not as strong as the film.
No.
So was there anything in the movie that you thought could have either been adapted better or is there anything in the movie that sticks out?
I found the sex scene weird. I didn't
the way it's
find
filmed.
it artistic. I found it a bit odd. I don't know.
I liked it because I think, and I like didn't do this, but I have a funny feeling like if you kind of like paused it and moved around, you would probably see glimpses.
You didn't do it?
Not this time. Not this time. You know, when I was like 14, maybe. But like, I wasn't looking for this, I'll tell you that much. Whether the faces are Durden or the narrator, whether it changes through.
I've actually found that in a few points of the movie.
Right.
There was this one scene where he was getting hit, and I remember thinking that it was going between the two of them.
Interesting.
I'll have to show you.
Go back. I actually have to go back and watch that because to me, this movie's a 5-star movie. I don't think I could change anything about it. Whereas the book, my only criticism is what I said earlier, is like if you didn't know anything about it going in, it probably is a tough read. It's an enjoyable read, but it's a tough read. Well, for me it was enjoyable because I enjoyed, but this is me. I think this is me as with film as well. I like things that challenge the norm, and this is not a normal book.
Yeah,
in any way, shape, or form.
I would have to say I agree with you. I've read some really weird stuff.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Don't you worry. But it was just more that I
shouldn't have challenged
I was like,
you on
I
that,
don't feel any like connection to what was happening.
Do you think that's an important part for you then, like in regards to a the experience of entertainment, do you feel like you have to have some sort of?
Why do I care otherwise?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, no,
I don't know. I'm just like.
Because like I'm trying to think of examples. I'm trying to stump you.
Like
Georja
I
Malt.
obviously cared the most about Marla and him.
Right. Yeah.
But this is what I think. This is all.
Do you think Marla was getting
preference.
used a lot, or do you think that she's sort of a?
Oh, I have no idea.
Do you think she's
just
the constructor of her own demise with her own sort of?
I think she's a girl who loves a bit of toxicity.
She's a lot of sabotage. She's self-saboteur.
She's clearly got a lot of mental issues.
She has a lot of shit going on.
Everyone in this book,
Bless
but I mean.
Marla. Happy ending though for them.
Well, yeah, I guess because I mean, like, obviously the book. So speaking of the ending, which I think the movie ending was beautiful, like them standing there watching all the buildings come down.
Where is my mind by the Pixies playing? It's great.
Amazing, loved that. Chills. It was great. In the book, it's a bit more. So Marla comes in with all the support group people, but it was my understanding he'd stopped going to the support groups.
Well, he had because of Projects Mayhem and everything like that. Like Fight Club was his new, because that's sort of told again with Bob when he sees Bob and Bob's like, oh, we've got this new group and I go Tuesdays and Thursdays, and he's like, like I only go Saturdays, and that's when he finds out that he is Tyler Durden is sort of like, I guess you could say franchised Fight Club.
Franchised. Yeah. But it's and so like and then in the book he he shoots himself in both. In the film, he somehow miraculously is alive.
Yeah, so like in the movie, he kind of like shoots himself through the cheek.
Which why would that kill Tyler? Like it doesn't
to me, it's kind of like it's almost like having to do the extreme thing to overcome the mental battle, right?
Okay, so it's not actually about like shooting.
It's not about killing himself.
It's
about doing the action that's going to be required to think that Tyler has been killed, right?
Yeah,
which is pretty complex, I guess.
Have shot yourself in the leg or something.
Yeah, but then Tyler would be like, "Why'd you shoot me in the fucking leg?" Because it's great. Because in the movie,
but why wasn't he like, "Oh, you shot me in the cheek"? Because he lived.
Good point.
I don't know. That was my only thing. I was like, that didn't make much sense to me, really.
It's funny. I think it's one. I'm guessing it's just like the part where it's like he is so far gone from any sort of mental normalcy that like mimicking shooting himself in the head was the only way out for Tyler, I guess.
I find it interesting that they kept the narrator alive.
Same.
I kind of thought it would have felt more like they could have like thrown them both out of the building or something,
because there's even
like a very
like
Harry
the
and
movie
Voldemort
has
spiral down moment.
Oh god, yeah, right. No, like literally, but like there's so many things that are left open then in the film and the book as well, where it's like you still have all these Project Mayhem members, like like I'm sure the narrator's going to prison for a long time.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, does he? Well, in the books, he's
the happy ending. He's just free from Tyler.
Well, like, in the movie, I obviously hope him and Marla run off somewhere and see some therapists.
Bonnie and Clyde shit,
okay, so you want them to live a life of crime and I want them to
and they all die at the end.
White picket fence. But yeah, no, and then in the book, he's obviously he's in the mental hospital and the staff at the mental hospital all Project Mayhem as
people,
ever it is.
And the servers of the world,
and then there's actually sequels in the terms
of graphic novels. There's two of them, right? There's 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And as we found out just before this, there's a Fight Club for kids.
So which
we need a deeper dive into that one.
What that adaptation
The Fight Club
like.
picture book.
Don't buy it
You
for
are
my
the
future
all
children.
dancing, all singing crap of the world, little kid.
Doo-doo of the world.
You're the doo-doo. Sorry, it's the kids version.
But,
sorry.
So I feel like the novel lends itself more to the sequels, whereas the movie feels like a bit more of a closed thing. Closed thing for me personally.
Something just while we're talking about the ending, and I don't know it off by heart, but I'll try and find it in the time that I'm talking. That this movie, so Fight Club was obviously for reasons banned in China for a long time. For a long time.
You're kidding.
It was released, I think it was literally only released last year, but the ending obviously was changed, and just as the countdown happens and he kills Tyler Durden and him and Marla are standing there, it cuts to a text on screen that pretty much says the police rapidly figured out the whole plan, arrested all the criminals, and successfully prevented the bomb from exploding. Like, it was a very censored ending in China. As for Pitt's character, the note says, so he doesn't even kill Pitt. He was sent to an asylum and then later discharged. But never mind the fact that
they're
it's
the
a
same
figment
person,
of
though.
Norton's imagination. So Tyler Durden got sent to an asylum.
I don't think they understood this.
Which is great. And then Chuck Palahniuk tweeted about it and said, "This is super wonderful. Everyone gets a happy ending in China."
Oh
his
my
book.
gosh.
So, which is great,
Hilarious.
which is fantastic. So maybe if that was the ending, you would have connected with it more and been like, hey, the bad guys went away. Marla and the narrator lived happily ever after. No bombs went off.
I mean, I don't have credit card debt, but if I did, I wouldn't mind it being wiped.
I wouldn't.
So-
Hey, like
that's not the part that really bothers me that much.
Maybe if the police like didn't save that one building from getting exploded.
My big, just the one,
just my credit
just
card
the one
company.
computer machine that has my data in it that can get that
just a little, just like a
blow that
Mission
up.
Impossible, like that's all
little
it
one.
needs.
No, when Kyle and I was watching it, my biggest concern was that people were still in the buildings, but he said that they evacuated them.
There's lines of dialogue that
I don't
says all the
really
people are out.
care so much about
Because that's like Tyler Durden's whole MO. He's like, those people, like, it's not the people in there who are bad, it's the companies themselves. So it's like, and at night he was like, it'd just be janitors and maintenance people in there. It was like, they're the foundation of Project Mayhem anyway. So, all those buildings were empty.
That makes me feel better.
A little bit better about
and
it.
Sleep at night with that.
I really wanted to touch on another key change, which I think actually probably could have been cut out of the book, even though it's humorous chapters. They really condensed Tyler's past down a lot, or his work, sorry. So Tyler's a cinema projectionist and he's a waiter for like a really high-end catering company.
Yep. Where he pees in the soup.
Yes, he pisses in the soup.
Other.
They fart and things, and it's pretty funny. But which is funnier than when the narrator takes Marla to that cafe when he's trying to explain to her,
and he's like clean.
She's like, I want everything. I want clam chowder, and he's like, but clean. He's like, would I guess I'd advise against the clam chowder. Then I'm like, it's funny. But we've like Tyler splicing pornography into children's film, which is hilarious in the film.
That was funny.
And then we find out he's the waiter, and it's a very sort of exposition scene just for Tyler. But there are chapters in the book dedicated to the fact that the narrator and Tyler obviously are working together at that catering company, right?
Yep.
Which I thought were funny. And there's one where there's a whole chapter dedicated to the fact that like they may have found out that Tyler is pissed in something, and he's kind of everyone's like, what the fuck, Tyler, why did you do that? And he's like, I don't give a shit. I'm Tyler Durden, baby. I wear jackets and glasses indoors. And it's fine in the book. It's funny, but I think the movie condensing it down to what we needed to know was perfect.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. So I just wanted to bring that up as what I thought was a key difference. But do you have anything else you'd like to add? I love this movie.
I think that might be everything.
That might be it. How good is, like, considering that this was a box office failure, then there was still some money behind it. Like the effects of the plane crash, like his visualization of the plane crash and stuff. I think there's elements of both that I love, right?
Oh, I just thought of something.
No,
from
please,
the movie.
yeah.
I like when they're talking about who they'd fight fictional characters, because that's not in the book.
No,
I think that was funny.
funny,
Like
yeah.
I'd fight Abraham Lincoln. Or whatever.
Gandhi is like, I'd punch Gandhi. He's like, ooh, good one.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
But to me, it also kind of highlights that like there are parts of Tyler Durden that are still so important to the narrator. Like, even though it is all his worst feelings, thoughts, inhibitions personified, there is still part of it was like, but like I've needed this person for so long. Even though he finds out like Marla was probably that person all along that he kind of needed, it to me kind of solidifies their relationship, even though it's a very mentally deranged, unhealthy one.
Yeah.
Like I like those elements of the book, of the film quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, but I like the biggest thing that, apart from Edward Norton and Brad Pitt, who I think are perfect in this movie, it's David Fincher. David Fincher is the reason. There is no favorite part of this movie for me. The favorite part is David Fincher. He's incredible. He's I feel like the only director who could have got this right. Like I don't see someone like Tarantino really doing Tarantino's Fight Club, Spielberg's Fight Club. You know what I mean? Like I don't see these things happening. So Fincher just has that aesthetic and that understanding and that.
He was the perfect
He's
director.
perfect. He's perfect for it. So, which I guess spoils what we think is better, the book or the film. But I'm just going to savor this moment for a little bit, Georja Malt, because
I knew this
we're
would
6
be on.
episodes in and I'm so happy. I'm already happy to hear the words that are about to come out of your mouth. So probably for the only time on this show, Georja Malt, what was better, the book or the film Fight Club?
Usually I say the book because you have this opportunity to connect and get details about characters that you don't. But I think it was the exact opposite for me.
You didn't want to know shit about these people?
No, but like I felt like I knew more about them from the film.
Yeah.
Which was weird for me.
Is it the perfect adaptation? Would you call this the perfect adaptation?
I'd call it a adaptation that was better. So the movie... The movie was better than the book.
Thank you all for tuning in to the final episode of The Book Was Better.
Going out on a high, mate.
Obviously, the movie's better for me as well. Like I said, it's a 5-star movie. It's one of my favorite movies. But even looking outside of like the rose-tinted glasses, right? Mm-hmm. After reading the book, which I did enjoy, I really did enjoy the book, and I flew through it. Like I'm a slow reader, but it was one that I couldn't put down because I wanted to see how they would get to the conclusion. To me, this is a perfect adaptation. It not only like has it trims the fat of the book. It like I understood every character motive, what the issues were, but to me, it's the visual style. Like I said, I'll just harp on Fincher again. Like this is a perfect visual adaptation, and that's not to say other films have done it well, but it almost struck me that Fight Club needed this aesthetic, right? Look back, it's like Percy Jackson had like the shiny gloss of like a teenage adventure film, but I don't feel like there was anything special about the direction. Even to Little Women, I was more into the story and how Greta Gerwig played around with these characters than her visual style of the film, which was still great, but you know what I mean? Whereas I don't think this movie's as good without Fincher. And that's a big part of the reason why I think the movie is better than the book.
Yep. Well, there we have it.
Fight Club. I'm so glad we did this one because it was firstly an excuse to read the book, but holy shit, it's a good movie. So
yeah, it was a great movie. I really enjoyed rewatching it.
Probably the darkest thing we've done so far.
And so that's why I'm gonna give us a hit of sugar. So I know all of those people at home with my picks think this girl says she loves to read, but she just picks the fluffiest things. But I'm just having a bit of fun with it.
You gotta have some fun, and you gotta balance out the psycho tendencies I've been bringing with a Fight Club. We need some sugar for about 6 episodes after this one.
Well, that's what I think, and I think we're here to give you a variety. If you want us to go one way or the other, let us know. But I mean, we're just sort of mixing it up. So there's a little movie coming out next month, Nick, called Red, White, and Royal Blue.
I've heard of it.
And the book has been an absolute sensation on TikTok.
Because of the film coming out, or even before?
Yeah, wow, the film is because of the huge success. Of the book,
right.
And it's a little romance. So between two gentlemen. So
this is where it sort of has first popped up for me because like on film Instagram and film Twitter, I'm just seeing, and this isn't stereotyping anything, but I'm seeing all the chicks sharing it and all the gay film reviewers sharing it. So it obviously has this cult following, right?
Like, what are you the target audience? Probably not.
Am I going to read and watch the hell out of it? Of course I am.
You will.
Of course I am. And you know what? I hope it's great. But I haven't watched the trailer, but I've seen this trailer shared around so many places that I'm like, okay, this obviously has some sort of
It's got a huge following, and I have yet to read the book, so I think this is the perfect opportunity.
Time to do it.
I just missed the wave of it.
It's coming out in August as well, so we'll probably drop the episode the day the movie comes out. So
August 11th, I believe.
August 11th, I believe it's a Friday, so you can watch the movie and then be like, I'd love to know what Nick and Georgia thought of the movie and the book. Then you can tune in and watch it then. So,
I mean, what a perfect Friday.
And you know what? Like you said, it is the antidote to the anti-establishment, anti-government, anti-masculinity.
That was terrifying.
That was terrifying. Scarred Georgia forever. I'm only allowed to pick G-rated movies for the next 5 of my picks.
I had to close my eyes in some of the fight scenes when he was like beating them to the Jared Leto.
The angel face one? Yeah, shit. Hey, also, Jared Leto's in this movie.
So random.
But yeah, he gets beaten to a pulp in this one. So
I felt like destroying something beautiful.
I mean, that's what it says.
Well, we'll talk more about beautiful men.
We
next month.
We will. Red, White, and Royal Blue will be the next one. So the other end of the spectrum of Fight Club. But obviously, thank you all for listening and watching this episode. Like I said on YouTube, like and subscribe. Apple Spotify, Google Podcasts. I'm talking like Chuck has written this book. Absolutely manic. Dangerous talking. dangerous writing. All of our social links are below, but Georgia, where can everyone find you on the internet?
Yeah, on Instagram, you can find me at withg.co.
And I'm at nicksflicksfix, Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. Shout out Threads.
Oh, yes, I'm on Threads too,
How
mate.
exciting. It's pretty fun. I've been on there like twice.
Yeah, it's not bad. Have a little.
We'll see how it grows. Shout out to Zuckerberg. We should wrap this up. We'll see you.
Bye,
we'll see you
everyone.
next
Thank
month.
You. See ya.